He knew Emily, and more than that, he knew his daughter. Sophie had grown up learning survival tips from him. She would have left signs. She would have screamed. Something was deeply wrong here, something no one could explain, and the deeper Mark looked, the more he began to believe that the forest wasn't just hiding Emily and Sophie, it had taken them by the third week of searching alone. Mark had developed a rigid routine: wake at dawn, scan the edges of the forest with his binoculars, then hike deeper along a different path each day with his journal, a machete, and a photo of Emily and Sophie. The local authorities had long since pulled out, but a few sympathetic guides still assisted him, more out of pity than belief. On the 22nd day, Mark stumbled upon something: a single red ribbon tied neatly around a tree branch at least 12 feet off the ground. It was Sophie's favorite hairband, unmistakable, a polka-dotted accessory she wore every day of the trip. But the question was, how did it get so high? No one could explain it. The tree itself had no low-hanging branches to climb, and there were no signs of recent climbing, no bark scraped, no vines pulled. It looked like it had been placed there intentionally. But by who? Sophie certainly couldn't reach that height. Mark stood under the branch for hours, his eyes scanning the treetops, hoping for movement. He later marked the tree with paint, and returned several times in the following days, but the jungle always seemed slightly different each time, as if it were subtly shifting around him. Landmarks faded. Familiar paths grew unfamiliar. He began tying ribbons of his own along the trees, hoping to trace his steps back. Only 3 days after finding the hairband, Mark made another discovery, one that truly began to unnerve the guides. Helping him, etched into the bark of a tree near a dried-out stream, was a crude drawing clearly carved by a child's hand. It depicted a little stick figure girl with large hollow eyes, surrounded by jagged lines that resembled hands or claws. Above the figure were 2 simple letters scratched into the bark: M and S. Mark immediately recognized it as Sophie's style of drawing. She often signed her doodles with her own initials. But the figure looked terrified, and the shapes surrounding it weren't animals. They looked wrong. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. He lay in his hammock, listening to the unnatural stillness of the forest. He kept replaying the image in his mind: Sophie carving that into a tree, terrified, hiding from something. The guides began to grow nervous. They whispered about how the jungle was playing tricks, about how travelers sometimes left marks before vanishing completely. One of them, a man named Diego, quietly quit the next morning, refusing to return to that stretch of forest. Mark pressed on alone, now certain that Sophie and Emily had left signs, perhaps knowing no one else would be able to read them except him. The days that followed became increasingly disorienting. More strange symbols appeared: